Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Two Couch Review.
The place where we review stuff, movies, etc., etc. And last time we were handing out gold stars, smiley faces, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the guy who was sitting at the table at the end who received two gold stars. We didn't see him last episode.
I know, right? Where was he?
Yeah, what was that about? So, maybe he went out to the grocery store. So we're gonna let him slide. No gold star for you this time. Maybe next time. Next time we see you at the dinner table, then we will give you
exactly.
a gold star. Till then.
Let us know what you guys are up to while you're watching the show. If you're have it on in the background just to listen, or if you're sitting down watching it, if you're eating something, whatever.
Snacks,
let us know.
Yeah. So, if you want to earn some gold stars, you know what to do.
Exactly.
Like, comment, subscribe. Notification bell.
All that good stuff.
All right, so let's just jump in it. So today, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be our first movie review.
Yes, sir.
And what movie are we going to be reviewing today, Jared?
We are going to be reviewing The Joker.
Joker. Yeah. Joker, so get rid of that.
2019 Joker.
Yes.
With Joaquin Phoenix.
Mr. Phoenix himself, representing. So, with that being said, let's hop into it. Hold on.
Spoiler alert.
No?
Arthur, does it help to have someone to talk to?
My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose to bring laughter and joy to the world.
If you just smile.
All right.
What'd you guys think?
It's pretty good, huh? Right?
I know, right? I'm sure most of you guys have seen it.
Yeah, by now. So, we're going to do the spoiler,
Yeah, see spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Exactly. So, what'd you think of the movie?
All right. So I'm going to say it. I loved it. I thought it was an incredibly good movie. I really, really enjoyed it. To be honest with you, like when I first saw it, sat in the theaters, we watched it. At the end of the movie, I sat there almost dumbfounded in a way, where I just seriously sat there kind of like, I knew I liked the movie. I just didn't know what level I liked it at. And I sat there and just like really absorbed everything I just witnessed. And then I was like, I loved this movie. This was a really good movie, very cohesive. I really, really loved how they shed light on people with mental problems that don't get that. Granted, I understand this is on a fictional character and all that stuff, but the reality of it is this is what makes this movie such a good movie and people like about it. Believe me, we recommend the spoiler alert. You guys really pay attention to that because we're gonna spoil stuff.
Exactly.
That they really focused on mental problems in the world. I know it's, like I said, it's fictional, but it's real problems that happen in everyday life to everyday regular people in the world, anywhere in the world, outside of America, in America, Canada, wherever. If you're a human being on Earth, there is such thing as mental problems, and this movie dives into it head first.
Exactly. And I think that's why a lot of the news outlets were kind of
worried is one of the better.
Yeah, I guess so. They were worried about somebody actually recreating what basically happened in the Joker, or basically putting like a Joker mask on or painting their face and going around killing people, because it was so realistic in his descent down from where we first see him at the beginning of the movie to at the very end.
At the very end, yeah.
It was like the amount of trauma that he went through from beginning to end, and even before like the movie started, in like his past when they showed him flashbacks, was awful.
It was awful, yeah. But then it gives you a real intimate. Intimate look would be more appropriate. A more intimate look on people, like the person who gets bullied too much and finally says enough. Like, ladies and gentlemen, that's literally the great description of the Joker.
Yeah.
Joker. a movie that it's just a person who gets pushed too far, who already has mental problems, and now just can't take it no more.
Exactly.
And then finally, it just
and he's been
bubbles
talking
over.
to. He was talking to a social worker.
Yeah.
I guess, or like a therapist, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
And-
They didn't really 100% specify that, but more or less it's
Exactly.
a social worker.
And he's like, hey, can you up my
Meds
my
and-
meds and everything? And she's like, well, why would we want to do that? And he goes, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. I just don't want to have to feel this way. And like a lot of people in the world feel like that
Every day.
every single day, where doctors are just like, oh, we'll just up your pain meds, or that one's not working, here's another one, or
Yeah.
your antidepressants and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, you got back problems? Here's a pill.
Exactly.
Oh, you can't lose weight? Here's a pill. Oh, you have problems with your eyebrows? Here's a pill.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, that was like what really resonated with me, because I'm like, wow, this is the first movie that approached it with that being the angle and the foremost, and then that's just when I guess chaos ensues.
Mhm.
Kind of like, okay, so we're just gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. It takes about 45 minutes for it to really get into the meat of the movie, but it's like you when you see everything that happens after about the 45-minute mark, it really gives you that satisfied feeling of knowing that beginning part all the way through gives you more satisfaction of realizing like you really did need to see that to really enjoy the texture and the complexity of how everything is unraveling near the end, especially when you just see how much of a punching bag this man was, and people
Yeah,
like
I
that.
mean-
This is just accept it and get beat up in life.
Yeah, I mean, in like one of the first scenes, he's out on the street trying to work in his job. His job was to be basically a sign spinner,
Yeah.
to pull people into the business, and he was dressed up as a clown, and some kids came up, ran off with this sign, and then he chased them, and then they whacked him with the sign behind a blind corner, and then like proceeded to beat him up, and what he didn't do anything to deserve that. He was just trying to do his job.
Trying to do his job. And then also too, like in the beginning I thought to myself, damn, that's kind of weird. He curled up in the fetal and just took it.
Yeah.
And then and he actually does it a lot in the movie. And so like when I saw that, that's when it like really resonated with me, like, oh, he's just so abused mentally that's just his self-defense mechanism. Just take it and go on with your day, and it is what it is. And so it's just like it's a part of the reality of things, and people don't like look at that there's a lot of people out there in the world who are just cushions for rotten people who just beat them up and just like punish them. Not to say that people are gluttons for punishment. Some are, some are not. In this movie he wasn't, and that's just what was given him. Those were just, no puns intended, cards where he was dealt in this lifetime, and just like it's very moving in a lot of ways, very, very good. And then when you get to the part when he just stops taking his meds, spoiler alerts, at one point they start closing down like the social worker that he was going to see, like that department and things like that. And to me, like as soon as that moment when she straight up says, I'm just gonna level with this guy, they don't give a shit about you at all. They don't give a shit about people like me. We're just numbers to them. We're nothing. Like that was one of those like pinnacles, just not only in the movie but just in life, when you start realizing like when you're just a number for that world, where you're just like a worker, you're just a worker bee, you don't mean nothing. And that's what was like so resonating with so many people. And I think that's the reason why news outlets were really terrified, like this is gonna set people off because this is our reality.
Yeah, exactly. It hit so close to home that it was like, wow. I mean, people might actually find inspiration in this
to try to, but I would think that because everyone I've spoken to, they made them more like passionate about pursuing more in life, not so much like I'm gonna go murder somebody. It's like, nah, I'm gonna go make my music career happen, make my gaming channel happen, make this happen or that happen for myself. I'm gonna become an artist and paint and stuff and all that stuff. Like that's what it is. That's how I looked at it personally. Like all that scene, up to when he starts murdering people, that's kind of, changes everything.
I mean, so let's skip ahead a little bit. So one of the scenes that really helped with building the whole plot of the movie was he actually has a brain disorder, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't even mention
that. Basically switches. It's like a real thing. Like this disease is real.
It absolutely is. If you don't believe us, look it up. It's absolutely real.
And it basically switches your brain's reaction to different senses and like feelings. So like when he's feeling like stressed or sad or scared or something like that, he laughs. And so later on in the movie, he's on a train or on a bus.
On a bus, yeah.
On a bus, I'm pretty sure going back to his apartment, and there's this kid sitting in front that was looking at him, and he starts making like funny faces at the kid.
Yeah, because
the kid's enjoying it, he's laughing, he's having a good time. But then the mom of the kid turns around and he's like, "Hey, quit bothering my kid." And then like in a real like nasty way.
Yeah, it's told him basically he'll F himself for
exactly. And then he starts laughing, and she's like, "Is that funny?" And he hands her like this card, this laminated card, basically explaining what I just did.
Yeah.
And then she reads it and she kind of like looks at him like
what?
Like
yeah,
what? Yeah.
Like what?
Like what? Are you serious? And then she hands it back to him, and the camera kind of like pulls away.
Yeah, pans out.
And he's just laughing there while everybody's kind of just sitting there in silence looking at him, and he's just laughing. It's not like he wants to.
Yeah, because throughout the movie, he constantly tries to stop himself, and he like gets choked up trying to stop, and then he starts, coughing while laughing. Then that goes back to Joaquin Phoenix' brilliant acting, to where like,
oh yeah,
that would be so hard to actually physically do. Like he actually does it like as if it was a real thing that he couldn't control.
So that was a very big turning point. It's like, learning about that and like why he laughs, because you see him laugh like that throughout the movie, before that scene and after that scene, but you don't really know why until then.
And that gives great context to the movie too, because then it's like a twist on something that is actually a real thing. And that's why, like, when I said in the beginning where I really stressed the whole mental thing, like, this is really a real thing, and then they're just twisting it on like, this is what could happen to a person who's like basically a punching bag for the world.
Yeah, this is like worst case scenario.
Yeah, and then this dude has a lot of mental issues, really bad ones that physically manifest, and he can't help himself.
Yeah, and then another big scene was later on in the movie. He's on a train on the subway. Yeah, and these like 3 kids from who worked at Wayne Industries. Yeah. He's like 3, maybe like college kids or something like that. Like they were like 20. Were basically like bullying this girl that was sitting there on the train, like damn near sexually assaulting her.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they were laughing about it. And then so he sees this. And like then, Arthur Fleck, Joaquin Phoenix. Sees this and he starts like, he's kind of uncomfortable, but he starts laughing.
Yeah, he kind of puts his head down, kind of like, I'm just going to ignore it, and then he can't help himself because he starts feeling.
And those guys hear it, obviously, and they come over and they're like, what's so funny? And they start like beating him up and everything.
Yeah, start harassing him, beating him up, and he keeps laughing because he can't control it.
Exactly. And I guess I should mention this earlier, but early on in the movie, he was given a gun by one of his coworkers at like the clown agency, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because these people work for like a promotion company that, like, you hire them on, they come outside and do whatever you want them to do, hold a sign, whatever. Yeah. And they work clown makeup. This guy ends up approaching Arthur and tells him, like, you need to protect yourself out there, because he heard about the thing we previously mentioned about the kids robbing him and actually hitting him with a sign. So he's just like, here's a gun. So in your head, you're kind of like, oh, this must be a cool guy, and then it kind of unravels near the end.
So when those kids on the subway were beating him up, he pulls out the gun and shoots one of the kids that's on there. Yeah. And then he gets up and shoots the other one.
Yeah, and then one of the guys managed to get away enough, far enough into the train, where he was able to catch him.
I'm pretty sure he was shot. Like, I think one time in like the shoulder, maybe the leg or something like that. but not like fatally. But then Arthur goes and follows him, like very. I mean, it was very intense the way that he followed him.
He did.
Because he was like very stiff, very like straight arm, like shoulders up, like gun pointed at him as this kid's trying to run away.
Yeah, and it's just
And he just
boom,
boom, and then he finished like that shot. I'm pretty sure killed him, and he kind of lays down on the stairs, and then Arthur walks up to him and puts like 2 or 3 more rounds into him.
and then that's kind of it when he finally, like, it's almost like at that moment everything started slowing down for him, and then that's when reality just and kicks in, and then he's just like, uh-oh, I gotta get out of here. What happened?
Exactly.
And that was like one of the real pinnacle scenes where it was like it really set everything in motion. Because after that, you fast forward a little, that's when all the people who are basically sick of Wayne Industries because of God, I can never remember Bruce's dad's name for the life of me.
Isn't it Thomas?
I think it's Thomas Wayne.
I'm pretty sure it's Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, Thomas. We'll go with Thomas. If it's not, please leave a comment down below.
Let us know. Let us know that we're idiots.
Yeah, let us know. So he's running for mayor, and that's what transpires in it, and he starts talking like very ill of the people of Gotham, that basically they're vermins and all that, and it starts really diminishing the character and all that he's basically going to come and fix it. Fix Gotham and make it much better than what it was, or make it what it was into now in something incredible and great that we should look forward to.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into it. I know you know exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But the problem is that people like Thomas Wayne and the richer, like, let's say like 1% of people in Gotham City are the reason that these other people kind of have these living conditions and are the way they are.
Yeah, because they keep cutting jobs and keep hurting people like that, and he can't control it. So fast forwards into that, and then throughout this time period, you start seeing Arthur living with his mother, and his mother is they're clearly in impoverished, dilapidated apartments. They clearly don't have money. They're barely scrounging by. Hence why Arthur goes and sees a social worker, because a lot of that stuff's for free and provided through the government and or through the cities, which like we said earlier, they end up getting rid of that, which causes a lot of problems. And one of the times, actually I believe it's just right after he shoots those guys, when he comes back and he sees the letter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might be.
I think it might have been in the exact scenes when he gets back and he sees the letter and reads it, and he finds out that his mom in the letters, because we'll get into that they were romantically involved. Here, let me put that out there, romantically involved. And so he goes and questions her, and she tells him, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and blah blah blah. And
she keeps saying Thomas Wayne is a good guy,
good guy and all that, and he's just like, no, he's just full of what. And then fast forward, because I feel like I'm missing a couple little scenes here and there, but during that time period, that's when Arthur, actually that was the train incident, was after he got fired, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he was wearing his clown makeup.
Yeah, and he actually went to a children's
train.
Yeah, and he went to a children's hospital, and while they're performing, and I thought that scene was fake. I thought that was in his head or something, and it turned out nope, that was absolutely real.
Nah.
So he goes to the kids' children's hospitals, dancing for them, goofing off, has the gun on him, the revolver, and it falls out of his pocket or in his waistline. I'm not sure exactly where he had it. Yeah, and then it falls down, and then right away picks it up, and needless to say, that was it. When he went back to work, he was fired on the spot, more or less. And then, so the reason why I said that is because then you fast forward, that's when the police are investigating the shooting, what happened, and all that. Arthur ends up going to Thomas Wayne to basically go question him, like, you and my mother together and all that.
Yeah.
And then that's when he ends up, and I'm assuming that's Alfred. When he's,
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, because you see a little boy walking in, obviously that's Bruce. And then you see a man come over, kind of like his carekeeper, caregiver, excuse me. And so you assume, oh, that must be Alfred. And so he tells him, shoo away. We don't want your people here and all that. And he explains like, well, I'm actually Arthur Fink. And he goes, didn't your mother tell you? And he goes, yeah, she told me everything. And it turns out like he tells him, well, your mom's actually mentally ill, and everything she's saying is all premeditated in her brain.
Yeah,
it's all
like
fantasy.
delusional.
Yeah, she's a crazy woman. Don't listen to her. And truth be told, anyone told that when you believe your parent, you're gonna be like, no, F you, like
Exactly.
How dare you say that about my parent?
And he already has bad feelings towards the Waynes and everything like that. Plus his mental downfall throughout the movie already. So after hearing that,
just really gets him going. So later on, he ends up going to basically they're having a rally against well, it's they're at an opera theater, the Wayne family, to see this opera and all that. And then there's a rally out front protesting him and the people who are against him and all that. And Arthur shows up there. He's really liking it, and then he ends up sneaking into the building to go speak to Mr. Wayne. He ends up finding out he sees him at one point in the opera theater. He sees him go to the restroom, so he goes to the restroom to meet up with him. And then Wayne's sitting there using the restroom, which ironically all movies start like that, where you just walk in the restroom and they're using the restroom, and they walk over and he's just like, "What do you want? Do you want an autograph or something?" And then that's when Arthur's just like, "No, I just." And then he starts kind of chuckling because he's getting nervous with all that. And he doesn't know what to say. And he's just like, "What's wrong with you?" And he said, "Well, my mother," and then says, "I just want to know the truth and all that." And he gets like really like angry with him. And then he starts telling him like, "Your mom's psychotic. She's crazy. That was not true. None of that's true." And so Arthur feels like very insulted that he said that. And then he starts laughing, because he can't control his the laughter. And then that's when Thomas Wayne gets mad and thinks that he's like mocking him, and so he punches him and ends up I forget exactly what he told him, but basically like he's scum, like don't ever come around my family ever again. And he ends up leaving
because Alfred told Thomas about when Arthur came. So then Thomas was like, wait, and when Arthur introduced himself, he was like, wait a minute, this is the same guy.
Yeah, same as that guy.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like thinking to myself right now, like we're going really in depth with this movie and we're about to go really long in time. So at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get up and use the restroom, feel free.
Yeah. Go for it.
Go for it. So all that happens. Arthur starts like trying to get into the truth of everything. He ends up going to the mental asylum and all that. Arkham is what their mental asylum is in the Gotham world. Which anyone else, Batman, they know what that is. He goes over there, ends up talking to a guy, and it's funny because I've seen that guy before, and I'm like, I know that actor. So he starts like that guy was just like, you could tell he was doing his job, but he's just like one of those type of really cool guys. So he's just like, oh yeah, I'll help you, man. Don't worry about it. And so he starts like going through his paperwork. And then that's when he reads some of the paperwork and says, actually, I need permission from Heads Up to even sign this out or whatever. And then that's when Arthur realizes he needs to like take it because he's not going to give it to him. So he grabs it, pulls it away from him, runs away, and then he gets into the stairwell and then starts reading it. And then that's when he finds out that he's actually adopted, and that's his mom is psychotic. And then that's when he finds out
she abused him.
She let the boyfriends and all of them abuse him. She used to chain him up to the radiator and starve him, and the boyfriends used to beat the crap out of him and all that. And that's what actually causes mental problems. Like literally, like it swelled his brain and it messed him up in his head. And then so that's when he's powerfully unhappy. And I think I may have mixed up one of the scenes, but after the shooting and all that, that's when the police started investigating all that. They end up going to his apartment, where his mom, his mother and him live together, and she ends up becoming hysterical, ends up in the hospital from it. And so when he shows back up, and God, God, how did that happen? Was it just
So,
because
like-
there was a answering machine there was a message on there, and that's why he goes to the hospital?
No. So I'm pretty sure what happened. Forgive us for
Jumping over the place,
messing
yeah.
these things up. We haven't seen the movie. It's obviously not out on like DVD or anything yet.
And we're not trying to be bootleggers either. So,
exactly.
trying to-
Exactly. We're all legal around here.
legal, yeah. Warner Brothers, listen to what we just said. If we want to sponsor this video,
So, so what happened was the police went to their place, and then she had like a stroke or something like that, or a heart attack maybe, and ended up in the hospital. And I believe
that scene was before the opera theater, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. And
Yeah, because that would make sense in the sequence of events.
exactly. And I think he just found out because like he went home or something. He was just coming home at that time.
You're
and-
right. That's when he actually went home and then opened the mailbox because he was all flustered because he just saw his mom in the hospital. And these two detectives went and visited him and told him everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And then that's when he got mad. 'Cause they're the ones who basically went over there, told his mom, and she went to, she had a heart attack or a stroke, ended up in the hospital. And then that's when he's headed home just to, he head home.
yeah.
He ends up checking his mailbox, and that's when he sees a letter, and he decides to open it and read it. And that's what transpires everything we just said about going and seeing the Waynes. And so fast forward all that. After he finds that out, basically it sends him into the spiral. if you
Yeah.
will.
So he goes to, after that, he goes to the hospital
Yeah.
where his mom is. And long story short, he kills her.
Yeah. He
Smothers her with a pillow.
smothers with a pillow. No longer cares. Literally.
Exactly.
That it's
Exactly.
over.
All of his empathy and
All-
compassion and all that right out the window.
right out the window. And then he also tells her that he's always hated the last name Fink. He's also always hated the general idea that he always had to be happy even though he wasn't.
Exactly.
And so like that's when I was like when you really see the emotion completely shift, and this is like now the reality of what's really happening. So yeah, then he gets to the scene where like, okay, she's now dead. He ends up back at the apartment. I'm assuming it's like the next day or something. And so he's sitting there putting on his makeup because during that time period he gets a phone call from oh man, I cannot remember Robert De Niro's character, but it's Robert De Niro, and he has his own TV show and all that. And we're just gonna leave out some of that because it's like now we're making the episode way too long.
yeah.
So
but like, yeah, I mean, we skipped a few important things, but
even then, it's like if we go any more deep, it's like we're gonna get to make the show super long.
yeah.
So, needless to say, he ends up basically he has to go onto a talk show to meet with Robert De Niro. So he ends up starting to get ready for that show. So what he decides to do is start putting on his makeup. And while doing that, he gets a knock on the door, and he ends up getting up and he decides, I better grab something for the protection. He ends up getting some scissors, puts it in his back pocket, and it happens to be
Co-workers.
co-workers. I was gonna say I could not think of their
Good
names.
Lord.
I'm sorry. I know one of them's name is Gary, and the other one I couldn't remember his name. But
Nah, some of his coworkers from the clown agency,
Yeah.
sideshow,
Sideshow, yeah.
basically, came over to see how he was doing because they were worried about him. I guess.
Well, one of them
More
did.
or less.
The other one is actually the one who originally gave him the gun to, for protection and all that. And he's actually the one that actually told on him, and that's why he got fired from the clown agency. So that sequence starts kind of getting, immediately like aggressive because that's when the guy who gave him the gun told him like, hey, there was some agents coming in like bugging me at work. What did you tell him? Did you tell him anything? And that's when Arthur gets the scissors and then stabs him.
Yeah, a
and-
lot.
and
Stabs him
then,
a lot.
And then that whole sequence is like went from like 0 to 100 like that.
Yeah, but then it went straight back to zero.
Straight back to
Because
zero.
right after he kills him, so one of the guys, he's a small person.
Yeah, small person.
He's a little person. And so he's trying to like run away.
Yeah.
And he can't because he can't reach the lock, like the little slidey chain lock on the door.
Door lock, yeah. And so he ends up having to, And you could, and the way they did the music was so beautiful for that scene, because it was like super aggressive. It gets intense, and then it slows back down, and then that's when his name's actually Gary, and I just remember his character's name's Gary, and he stops and puts his head down because he can't open a door, and then he has to say, "Arthur, can you help me with this?" And that's when Joaquin Phoenix Arthur says, "Oh yeah, Gary, let me get up." So he gets up, and he goes to unlock it. And then he actually stops and then relocks the door and turns to Gary. And then at that scene, you're like, don't kill him.
Gary's dead.
Yeah, I was like, Gary is a nice guy. But then he fortunately doesn't. And then he tells him, Gary, you're the only nice person to me. And gives him a kiss on the forehead, opens it, and says, you better get out of here. And then he leaves. So
that was a pretty funny scene.
That was a pretty funny scene. And that was like that was it. It's official. Everything's come to a head. Mm-hmm. Now he's basically what you would call the Joker. So, more or less.
Yeah, because he's killed 5 people now
by that point. Yeah. And there's one that we're not going to get to because that's additional time that we were kind of running out of, which was the girl who you think is his girlfriend. Turns out it was all in his head, and you don't know if he kills her or not because he ends up breaking into her apartment. Mm-hmm. That was just in a nutshell, really fast. All right, so. Fast forward, he ends up going to the place, and while he's headed over there, the police actually see him, and they want to go talk to him. The detectives, they see him in the makeup, so they start putting 2 and 2 together. They start chasing him. He ends up getting to obviously his destination, which is Robert De Niro's show. And while he's sitting in there getting ready, Robert De Niro goes in there and tells him, like, that he's had stage fright, preps him for the show, and in doing so, he also asks him. See, right now for a split second, I had the name and it slipped my mind again.
It starts with an M.
Yeah.
I know it starts with M. I can't think of it. But so he goes in there and he is prepping him for the show. And then Arthur already has his full clown makeup on. He's dyed his hair green. He's wearing a red suit with the yellow vest on. The classic that you see from the poster from the movie. Or if you want to go super old school, like the original Joker, the original Batman show. Yeah, and he does that, and then he's like, oh, one more thing. I thought the name was going to come to me. It didn't. I can't remember it. It's going to piss me off. So he talks to Robert De Niro, and he's like, hey, when you pull me out there, can you introduce me as Joker? And he's like, you want to be introduced as Joker? And he's like, well, yeah, that's what you called me when you
made fun of me.
When you made fun of me on your show.
And
because, oh shit, we skipped that one too.
I know.
Fast. Arthur wanted to be a stand-up comedian. He went to a show. He was telling jokes. He couldn't get the joke out because of his laugh. And people were making fun of him. Somebody took a video. Robert De Niro found the video, put it on his show, made fun of him. Arthur's always looked up to this show because he finds Robert De Niro really funny and like the show really funny. And so when he gets a call, he's like, oh man, I know they're just going to bring me on here to make fun of me. So
hence why he just like go with Joker. And then his publicist is like, no, you can't do that. And then Robert De Niro's just like, no, if the kid wants that, you got it. I'll call you that. And so fast forward, goes to the scene where it's going to start. And then he, introduces him Joker, and they open the curtains. And I do like how he started like shifting, like he's like kind of dancing a little, and he comes out and does a little twirl and dance. And then the crowd cheers him on. Not cheers him on, but like cheers for it. And then he, sits down. So he starts asking him like what happened and all that. And then he goes, kind of basically jumps into like, why do you make fun of people like me? You just brought me on the show to make fun of me. Excuse me. And then all that kind of starts erupting, and it starts getting real aggressive. And then he, starts telling him, you can't say things like that. It's not funny, because he tells him like a joke in bad taste. At this point, he's no longer on his meds and all that. So everything he's saying is just like in his head is like, that's what a rational person would say.
Yeah.
But really,
and he admitted to killing the 3 Wayne guys.
Yeah.
He admitted to that like while he was talking to Robert De Niro on the show. And then they keep the show going for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but they just kept rolling the show, and like he kept staying in character basically. And then he was like, something insults him, or I can't remember what happened. What he said, what Robert De Niro said to Arthur to actually like
Get it to climax.
get it to climax. But
yeah, so it gets to that point where he says something to him, kind of like, basically to the effect that you're not a funny person. You know, you're not really the right state of mind. And then Arthur feels insulted, but you know, Arthur already had in his head what he was gonna do.
Yeah.
So just put that out there. And so he pulls out his gun and shoots point blank, well, more or less point blank at Robert De Niro. Hits him, you know, right square in the face. I would say actually in his eye.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that whole sequence of how they did that, the effects and everything it looked like almost like as if it was real. Like they literally just shot Robert De Niro for reals in real life. And then, you know, obviously panic ensues. Everyone starts flipping out, running off. And then,
because this is live TV.
This is live TV. And then it shows Arthur Fink, you know, Joaquin Phoenix get up and then look around and kind of like what's going on. And he ends up putting 2 or 3 more in him.
Mm-hmm.
And then walks over to the camera and starts talking and basically saying like, you know, you can't, you know, keep belittling people like me. And then it cuts him off. And then later it shows the rest of the scene where they tackled him, got him, and then that, you know, that continues from there.
Yeah, they put him in the back of a police car, and throughout this time, everybody looked at Arthur, the Joker, as
the representation,
as basically their hero. They were happy that those 3 Wayne guys got killed, all the poor people in Gotham.
Yeah.
So they looked at Arthur as like this like heroic figure that did something good for
the manifestation of the correct thing that should be happening. He's the one that took the right step for the right direction.
Exactly.
Which
so
in reality it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
It was just like a bad scenario events that happened to happen.
Yeah.
But
when he gets so he's in the back of the cop car driving to jail.
Yeah.
And he sees everybody outside because they're driving through like I'm assuming a poor part of Gotham.
Yeah.
And it's like fires everywhere. People are wearing clown masks and killing everybody else. And you know, somebody rams the police car and like flips it over. And then they pull out Arthur. And
then
he's like looking around and everybody's like gathering around him cheering.
Yeah, cheering for him. And then that's exactly when the moment when he realized like, this is what I wanted to be like kind of praised, and this is my way of being praised. And so this is the most pinnacle scene where he actually puts his hands in his mouth, pulls out some of the blood from, you know, the accident, and he draws on the infamous count, you know, it's a smile.
Yeah.
That's, you know, the Joker monocle, like of just that blood smile. And then and then they just, you know, fast forward, you know, I'm assuming that they didn't show the scene, but, you know, they basically capture him. They put him in Arkham Asylum. And then, I don't even want to, you know, but whatever. The whole Bruce Wayne thing gets shown, how Batman becomes Batman, but that's like really super short. Just, you know, you can tell they threw it in there real fast. And then it shows Arthur in a white, you know, the white outfit, usually, you know, associated with, you know, mental asylums and all that.
Yeah.
He's talking to a woman who works there, and she's asking him like, you know, do you feel any remorse or for what you've done and everything? And he kind of starts chuckling, and she goes, what's so funny? And he goes, oh, I just thought of a joke. And she goes, well, what is it? And he goes, I don't think you would find it funny. And then it shows him walking out of that room with blood on the bottom of his soles of his shoe, and he's making imprints all the way. And then he starts getting chased by someone, and then that's when it shows the end, and then the movie credits roll.
Mm-hmm.
Very good movie. Really good movie. Sure. It had a couple questions raised, a lot of good little things that, like, I think really needed to be presented in movies, and they did it with this movie. Out of all movies in the world to do it with, they did it perfectly with this one. Oh yeah, it's kind of blew my mind they did it. So without a doubt, I think this was a great movie.
Me too. I would definitely watch it again. It's within my top maybe 5 movies of all time.
Agreed. I highly recommend it. So with that being said,
keep watching.
Keep watching.